It's midday, a large supermarket on the outskirts of town. It's always crowded, but on a weekday, it's less crowded. Bright lights illuminate the wide aisles between the shelves. The air mingles with the scents of fresh bread from the bakery, fruit, and a clean floor. A man enters through the glass doors. His name is Taemin. He wears an expensive but simple black suit that fits his large, toned frame perfectly. His shoulders are broad, his posture upright. He moves easily and silently, despite being tall and broad-boned. His face has clear, almost sharp features. He has a square chin, a straight nose, and dark eyes. His skin is an even medium tone. His expression is calm and focused. He came here for water, just water. He doesn't have time for a long shopping spree. He has an important business meeting in 40 minutes, and he wants to arrive early to check everything. His thoughts are already there. He's going over the details of the upcoming conversation in his head, recalling the numbers from the report he reviewed this morning. He automatically passes the shelves of vegetables without looking at them. His gaze glides over the people around him, noticing them briefly, out of habit. He notices the surveillance cameras on the ceiling, the exits, the positions of the security guards. It happens automatically, effortlessly. He finds the beverage section. Glass-doored refrigerators line the counter. Inside are bottles and cans of every color. Taemin opens one of the doors. Cold air hits his hand. He picks up a plain, clear bottle of still water. The plastic is cold and slightly damp. He closes the door and turns to head to the registers. He takes a few steps down the main aisle and turns the corner where the grocery aisles begin. And then he sees her. At the end of the aisle, by the cereal shelf, stands a woman. Her back is to him, slightly turned, reaching for something from the top shelf. The lamplight falls on her light, almost white hair. It's cut short and neatly styled. It shines like pure silk. She's wearing simple blue jeans and a loose gray sweater. She's petite, with a distinctly feminine build, with soft curves, but she's not plump. Rather, she looks strong and athletic. Her movements are smooth and precise. Taemin slows his pace. Something about her silhouette, the way she turns her head, the line of her shoulder, catches his gaze. His heart gives a single, quiet, heavy beat somewhere deep in his chest. A familiar feeling, so familiar. He doesn't immediately understand where it comes from. He just stares. The woman picks up a box of oatmeal from the shelf, examines it, and places it in her basket on the floor. She adjusts her hair, tucking a strand behind her ear. This gesture, this precise, light gesture. Taemin sees her hand, slender, long fingers, dark skin with a warm, deep tone. And then a wave hits him. Not hot, but icy. It rises from his heels to the top of his head, freezing his entire body. Taemin freezes in place. He stops breathing. The noise of the supermarket, the hum of voices, the creaking of shopping carts, the music from the speakers, suddenly becomes distant, muffled, as if submerged underwater. Silence rings in his ears. He knows. He knows with absolute, unmistakable clarity. This is Alani Kim, or rather, no longer Kim, his ex-wife, the woman he divorced 7 years ago. The divorce was difficult, full of bitterness, resentment, and anger. They hadn't seen each other since the very last day in the courtroom. He knew she had moved away, changed her phone number. He didn't look for her. He had decided to erase that chapter of his life. He thought he had succeeded. He was sure of it. But now she's here, 50 steps away, in an ordinary supermarket. She's studying the ingredients on a box of cereal, and her profile, which he's seen 1,000 times, seems both painfully familiar and alien. He sees her lips moving, as if she's reading something to herself. He sees her long eyelashes. He can't move. His hand still clutches the cold water bottle. The plastic is starting to sweat in his palm. His heart, which had stopped a second ago, now begins to beat with incredible force. The beat echoes in his temples, in his throat, in his fingertips. He feels the blood rush to his face and then recede, leaving a feeling of emptiness and cold. 7 years. A whole 7 years. Alani puts the box back on the shelf and picks up another one. She leans over her basket, and at that moment, Taemin notices movement at her feet. A boy stands next to her. He holds her hand tightly, by those long fingers. The boy is no more than 7 years old. He's wearing a bright blue hooded jacket and dark jeans. He's saying something to his mother, pointing somewhere toward the shelves of sweets. His voice is thin and clear, but Taemin can't make out the words. Taemin glances at the child. He sees his dark, curly hair, neatly trimmed. He sees his ear pressed to his mother's hand. He sees the boy shifting from foot to foot, full of impatience. Ilani answers him, shaking her head. She smiles. This smile, light, restrained, for a second transforms her entire face, making it younger, softer. Taemin remembers this smile. He remembers how it disappeared in the last months of their marriage. And now it's here again, and it's directed at this boy. He looks at the child, and his brain, still stunned by his encounter with Ilani, begins to slowly, laboriously process the new information. A boy. A child. A son? No, it can't be. He would know. He would definitely know. But he knows nothing. Absolutely nothing. Ilani lets go of the boy's hand to pick up the basket. She says something to him, and he nods and walks beside her as they begin to move toward the next aisle. The boy turns his head, looking around. His gaze glides along the aisle, the shelves, the people, and at that moment he looks straight towards Taemin, not at him directly, just a little past. But that's enough. Taemin sees his entire face. Medium skin tone, warmer than his own, but lighter than Ilani's, and his features. Clear, well-defined features. A square face. Straight, dark eyebrows. The same eye shape Taemin sees in the mirror every morning when he shaves. A firm jawline that, even on a child, seems surprisingly defined. And his expression. The serious, attentive, slightly wary expression of a small person in a big, unfamiliar world. These are his own features. They are an exact, living, miniature copy. Standing before him is a little boy who looks as if Taemin himself stepped out of a childhood photograph. The impact hits him physically. The air is forced out of his lungs with a hissing sound. His hand loosens, and the water bottle hits the floor with a dull plastic thud, bounces off, and rolls under the nearest shelf. Taemin doesn't even notice. He just watches. The thoughts in his head are a jumble. 7 years, divorce, breakup, silence. A boy. 7 years old. He's 7 years old. The calculations happen lightning fast, against his will, adding up to a single, irrefutable conclusion. This is his son. He has a son, and he knew nothing about it all these years. All this time, while he was building his life, his career, his world, somewhere nearby lived this boy. His blood. His flesh. His copy. First comes the shock. Pure, deafening shock. Then, through it, something sharp and burning breaks through. It's anger. It rises from the pit of her stomach, constricting her throat. How could she? How dare she hide this from him? Steal these years from him? Deprive him of it all? He looks at them. Ilani now notices that the boy is staring at something. She turns her head too, and her gaze glides down the aisle. He sees the moment she notices the bottle on the floor. Her eyebrows draw together slightly. Then her gaze rises, and meets his gaze. This is where the story ends. The bottle lies on the floor, a small puddle of water slowly spreading across the shiny surface. Taemin looks at it, and this simple, ordinary object, a fallen plastic bottle, seems to him now to symbolize everything that has just collapsed in his life. His world, so orderly and controlled, has come apart at the seams. He has to do something. He can't just stand there and watch them go. His instinct, cold and professional, whispers, "Back off. Turn around. Walk away. Think. Make a plan. See a lawyer." It's the only sensible course of action. But there is another instinct. Deep, animalistic, wild. It comes not from his head, but from his chest itself, from the place where his heart was beating a minute ago. He looks at the boy, at his son, and this instinct screams one thing: stay. Taemin takes a deep, shaky breath. He slowly bends down and picks up the bottle. The water inside splashes. He places it on the nearest shelf of canned goods, next to the cans of peas. He sets it aside. This action feels incredibly meaningful to him. He lets go of what he came for. Now his hands are free. He takes a step forward, then another. His legs feel heavy, like they're made of lead. Every step cuts off his escape. He's no longer a watcher hiding in the shadows of the shelves. He steps out into the open space of the main aisle and begins walking in their direction. The distance between them closes. 40 steps, 30. He sees details. The pattern on Ilani's gray sweater, the hood on the boy's jacket, the design on his sneakers. He hears their voices. The boy is insistently asking for something, his voice clear. Ilani turns to answer the boy. Her gaze, casually sweeping down the aisle, lingers for a moment on the tall figure slowly but inexorably approaching. At first, it's simply a reaction to the movement, then a brief pause, recognition of form, posture, manner of movement. Their eyes meet. It all happens in a split second. First, A blankness of incomprehension appears in her dark eyes. Then, a brief flash of surprise. She reminds me of someone. Then, a click, recognition. It doesn't come gradually, but crashes down on her with all its force. All the color drains from her face. Her dark skin, warm and vibrant, turns ashen matte, almost gray. Her eyes widen in pure, undiluted shock. Her lips, just about to say something to her son, remain parted. She freezes, as if turned to stone. The hand holding the basket drops limply, and the basket falls to the floor with a dull thud. Several fruits, an apple, a banana, tumble out and roll across the floor. She pays no attention to it. She simply looks at him. There is no anger, no hatred, no joy in her gaze. There is only absolute, chilling horror. Taemin moves closer. Now they're only a few steps apart. He sees every detail of her face, every wrinkle that wasn't there before. He sees her lower lip trembling. He sees the panic in her wide eyes. He stops. The silence around them seems deafening, though the supermarket continues to live its life. Someone circles a fallen shopping cart, casting a curious glance at them. Taemin opens his mouth. His throat is dry. His tongue feels like cotton wool. He has to say something. What? Hello? For 7 long years? Is this my son? Only a hoarse, barely audible breath escapes his lips. He tries again, and this time a sound comes out. One word. Her name. Ilani! His voice is quiet, low, devoid of any force. There's no threat in it, none of the usual steely edge he uses when giving orders. There's only a mute, all-consuming shock in his voice. He says her name not as a challenge, but as a question, a plea for confirmation that all of this is real. The sound of his voice seems to frighten her even more. She shudders as if struck by electricity. Her hand instinctively reaches behind her back. Ilani makes a sudden movement. She doesn't retreat. On the contrary, she takes a step forward, but not toward Taemin. She places herself between him and the boy. Her body becomes a living, tense shield. She drops to one knee, wrapping one arm around the child's shoulders and holding him close. Her other hand rests on the floor, as if she's ready to push off to protect him with her weight. Her face changes. The shock and horror recede, replaced by something hard and sharp. Her eyes narrow, taking on a hardness Taemin has never seen before. It's the look of a mother wolf, cornered and ready to tear apart anyone who dares approach her cub. There's no trace of the soft, pliant woman he once knew in that look. It's the look of a warrior. "Mom?" A frightened voice comes from behind her. The boy doesn't understand what's happening. He feels the tension in his mother's body, sees the basket fall, sees the tall stranger silently watching them. He hugs his mother around the neck, trying to peek over her shoulder. Ilani doesn't answer her son. She continues to stare at Taemin, her gaze boring into him, trying to read his intentions. Her breathing is rapid and shallow. The boy, unresponsive, carefully extricates himself from his mother's embrace. He doesn't look frightened, rather puzzled and curious. He steps out from behind Ilani, still clutching her shirt with one hand. His large, dark eyes lift and regard Taemin. He looks up at this enormous stranger in a formal suit. He blinks. Then he asks a simple, childish question that cuts through the tense silence like a knife. "Mom, who is this?" His voice is clear, ringing, full of natural curiosity. He hasn't yet learned to be afraid. He simply sees a person standing there, silent, and wants to understand why his mother is acting so strangely. Ilani freezes. Her hard expression briefly gives way to another kind of panic. She doesn't know what to say. She can't tell the truth. Not here, not now. But lying, saying stranger, is also impossible now. She looks at Taemin, and a silent, desperate plea appears in her eyes. Taemin hears the boy's question. It sounds like a clap of thunder to him. Who is this? The most important question of his life. He tears his gaze away from the child and meets Ilani's again. A battle unfolds between them, without a sound. His gaze says, "This is my son." "Why? Why didn't you say anything?" Her gaze answers, "Not now. Please, not here. Don't scare him." His gaze hardens. "I have to know. I'm not leaving." There's a flicker of desperation and something like rage in her eyes. "You have no right. You lost all rights 7 years ago." He takes a barely perceptible step forward. His gaze begs, "Give me a chance, at least to look at him." In response, she presses her hand even tighter to her son's shoulder, protectively. Her gaze becomes icy and impenetrable. It's a wall. "No, you will not come any closer." They stand there for a few seconds that feel like an eternity. People passing by begin to slow down, sensing the tense atmosphere. An elderly couple makes a wide circle around them, whispering. The cashier at the unoccupied register stands up, trying to figure out if they need help. Taemin understands this battle is lost. Here, in front of everyone, he will achieve nothing. He can only frighten the boy and make Alani withdraw even more. He sees how her hand, resting on the child's shoulder, trembles with tension. He slowly, very slowly looks away. He takes a step back, just one. It's a gesture of surrender, temporary surrender. Alani, he says again, his voice a little calmer now, but still quiet. We need to talk. He doesn't ask, he states, but there's no threat in his tone. There's the weight and inevitability of fact. Alani, seeing his retreat, exhales. A small amount of tension leaves her shoulders, but the shield within her body doesn't vanish. She nods quickly, almost imperceptibly. Her eyes say, yes, but not now, not with him. Taemin looks at the boy, who still looks at him curiously, clutching his mother's sweater. He wants to memorize every detail, the strand of hair falling across his forehead, the freckles on his nose, the shape of his ears. Okay, Taemin says, addressing Alani, but looking at the child. Let's talk. The boy, receiving no response from his mother, gently tugs at her sweater. His gaze shifts from Taemin to Alani, then back to Taemin. His childish curiosity overcomes his wariness. Mom, he repeats, a little louder and more insistent. Who is this guy? Do you know him? His voice, clear and ringing, breaks the icy silence between the adults. This simple question hangs in the air, demanding an answer. Taemin freezes, looking at Alani. He himself is incredibly eager to hear what she will say. How will she introduce him? As a stranger? As an old friend? As a father? Alani closes her eyes for a split second, as if gathering her strength. When she opens them, the wild panic is gone. A tired, heavy resolve has taken hold. She straightens slowly, but her hand remains on her son's shoulder, maintaining a protective gesture. She doesn't look at Taemin. She looks at the boy and tries to smile. The smile comes out strained and crooked. It's an old acquaintance, Kai, she says, her voice unnaturally high and hoarse. She clears her throat. We, haven't seen each other in a long time. A very long time. She says the word familiar, as if it burns her lips. The word acquaintance hits Taemin with unexpected force. It feels like a slap in the face. They were husband and wife. They shared the same life, the same bed, the same dreams. And now, to their son, he's just an old acquaintance. An old wound he thought had healed long ago suddenly reopens. He feels the same confusion, the same pain and searing injustice that plagued him in the last months of their marriage. He sees her standing there, shielded from him by the child, as if he had the plague, and the image is all too familiar. She always distanced herself when problems arose between them, and now there's a whole life between them. 7 years of his son's life. He clenches his jaw so hard his cheekbone starts to ache. He wants to say, I am your father, simple and clear. But he sees fear in Kai's eyes, who now looks at him with new interest, hearing that he is his mother's friend. He sees pleading and warning in Alani's gaze. She would do anything to keep him from telling the truth now. And he realizes he can't. Not here, Taemin says quietly, turning to Kai. His own voice seems alien to him. Your mother and I have known each other for a long time. He adds nothing more. An awkward, oppressive silence falls. Kai bends down to pick up a fallen apple. Alani quickly, sharply bends down with him, gathering the rest of the fruit back into the basket. Her movements are abrupt, jerky. She avoids looking at Taemin. Come on, honey, we need to pay up, she says to Kai, taking his hand. Her grip seems too tight. She picks up the basket and, without looking at Taemin, heads for the nearest empty checkout lane. She walks quickly, almost running. Taemin follows without a second thought. He doesn't walk directly behind them, but moves parallel to them, in the adjacent lane, keeping a few meters away. He doesn't want to let them out of his sight, not for a second. Kai turns to look at the tall stranger. He whispers something to his mother. Alani shakes her head and answers briefly, quickening her pace even more. There's soft background music playing in the supermarket. A murmur of voices can be heard, but between the three people there's a wall of heavy, deathly silence. Taemin feels every nerve taut. He watches Alani place her basket on the conveyor belt. Kai help her unload the groceries. He sees her hands tremble as she searches her bag for her wallet. He doesn't buy anything himself. He just stands to the side and waits. He knows he looks strange, but he doesn't care. Alani pays with her card. She quickly signs the receipt, grabs the grocery bag with one hand, and holds Kai tightly with the other. She practically runs out of the store and into the area near the exit, where the carts and cigarette cases are lined up. Taemin follows her. He catches up with them at the large glass doors leading out to the street. "Eleni," he says, and there's that same firmness in his voice she once knew. A firmness that doesn't tolerate refusal. She stops but doesn't turn around. Her shoulders tense. Taemin continues. He moves closer but stops 2 steps away, giving her space. His voice is quiet, but every word is pronounced clearly and powerfully. "Now! I can't just leave!" Eleni slowly turns to face him. Her face has become stony again. A cold fire burns in her eyes. "No," she says shortly. "Not now." "Mom?" Kai looks at Taemin again, then at his mother. He's starting to sense that something important and unpleasant is happening. Taemin looks at Kaya, then looks back at Eleni. He understands her. He doesn't want to make a scene in front of the child. Anger and pain boil within him, but he forces himself to think clearly. One wrong step and she'll disappear again, forever. And this time, he won't find her. "Without him," Taemin says quietly, nodding towards the boy. "Just you and me. Half an hour." Eleni looks at him, and he sees the struggle in her eyes. Fear, anger, fatigue. She understands that hiding any longer is pointless. He has found them. Or maybe he found them by accident, but now he knows. He will not back down. She sees it in his stubborn, square jaw, in his firm gaze. She looks away, somewhere toward the parking lot. Her lips are pressed tightly together. She breathes through her nose, in short, noisy breaths. "Okay," she finally breathes out. "But not today. And not here." "When?" Taemin asks immediately. He won't give her time to change her mind or run away. Eleni looks at Kai, who is fiddling with the handle of the bag. "Tomorrow. In the morning. Kai will be at school." "Where?" She thinks for a second. She needs a public, safe place. "The Central City Park, by the main fountain." "At 10. Taemin nods instantly. "Okay. 10. By the fountain." He wants to say something else. Ask about the boy. About his name. About how he lived. But the words stick in his throat. He just looks at Kaya, who is now hiding behind his mother's leg, watches this quiet, tense conversation between adults. "See you tomorrow," Eleni says. Her voice isn't a farewell, but a command to stay put. She turns and, holding Kai's hand tightly, walks through the automatic doors onto the street. Cold air rushes in. Taemin doesn't follow her. He remains standing by the glass doors and watches them walk across the parking lot to a small, old car. He watches her place the boy in the back seat and buckle him in. He watches herself get behind the wheel. He memorizes the license plate. It drives away and disappears from view. He stands there for a few more minutes. Then he slowly turns and walks back to the supermarket to pick up his car from the underground parking. He no longer remembers why he came here. The meeting was canceled. All his plans were ruined. Taemin arrives at his empty, spacious apartment in the city center. The silence here had always seemed a blessing. Now it oppresses him. He doesn't turn on the light. He takes off his jacket, throws it on a chair, and unbuttons his shirt collar. He goes to the large picture window and looks out at the city at night, but sees no lights. He sees only one face, the face of a boy, his son. His thoughts whirl around in his head. He returns to the numbers. 7 years. Their divorce was... when? He frantically tries to remember the dates. The month, then. If the boy is 7, he constructs a timeline in his head. And he realizes that Eleni left him already knowing. She definitely knew. She hid it from him deliberately. A wave of anger washed over him with renewed force, searing and dark. How could she? What right did she have to decide for him? To deprive him of this? He paced the dark living room. He thought the main pain was the divorce. It turned out that was just the tip of the iceberg. The main pain awaited him 7 years later in the form of a little boy with his own eyes. He thinks about how she protected the child, how she looked at him like he was a threat. This thought hurts him more than anything. He is a father, and to her, he is a danger, an enemy. He turns on the computer and hopelessly searches for Eleni and Kai. Nothing. The social media he finds were abandoned years ago. She's hidden well. She's been living nearby all these years, but in a parallel world he hasn't had access to. He lies down in bed, but sleep doesn't come. Images flash before his eyes. Her smiling at Kai in the supermarket. She turns pale with horror when she sees him. She becomes a shield. He tosses and turns, remembering her every word, every look. Old acquaintance. Not today. Cold, cutting phrases. He thinks about tomorrow's conversation. What will he say? What will he demand? He has the right to see his son. He has the right to know everything. But what if she says no? What if she runs away again? The power and authority he has in his world are useless here. He can't use them against the mother of his child. It's a dead end. The night drags on painfully long. He looks at his watch. 3 in the morning. 4. Dawn outside the window slowly washes the blackness of the night with gray hues. Taemin gets up. He hasn't slept a minute. His body is heavy, his head is buzzing, but his mind is sharp and burned. He is ready to talk. He needs to know the truth, the whole truth. The Central City Park. It's a weekday morning. There are few people here. An elderly couple is feeding pigeons. A young mother is pushing a stroller along the alley. The noise of the city is muted here. Taemin arrives 15 minutes before 10. He doesn't want to be late. He goes to the large old fountain in the center of the park. The water cascades from the stone basins. He sits down on a bench 20 steps from the fountain, overlooking all the approaches. At 9:50, he sees her. Eleni is walking along the main avenue from the direction of the bus stop. She's alone. She's wearing a dark blue coat, buttoned up to the top, and boots. Her blonde hair is tucked under a wool hat. She's not carrying a bag, only her keys. She looks different than yesterday. Collected, determined. Her face is calm, but this calm seems fragile, like thin ice. She approaches the fountain and stops, looking around. Her gaze finds Taemin on the bench. She doesn't smile or nod. She just waits. Taemin stands up and slowly approaches her, leaving a few meters between them. The sound of running water fills the silence. "You've arrived," Taemin says. It's not a question, but a statement. "Yes," Eleni answers curtly. She looks him straight in the eye. There's none of yesterday's panic in her gaze. There's weariness and a readiness for battle. "I said I'd come." They stand in silence for a few more seconds. Taemin waits. He knows he has to let her begin. Otherwise, he'll lose it right away. Eleni takes a deep breath. She looks not at him, but at the falling water of the fountain. "When I left, I was 2 months pregnant," she begins in a flat, lifeless voice, as if reading a report. "I didn't know right away. I found out a week after our last conversation in court." She pauses. Taemin feels the ground shift beneath his feet, even though he's standing still. He remains silent, gritting his teeth. "I thought about telling you," she continues. "I picked up the phone, but then I remembered that conversation. Your words, my words, all that cruelty, all that poison that was between us. I imagined what would happen next. The fight, the lawsuits over the child before it was even born, using it as a weapon against each other. Your world, your affairs, your people. I've seen how this world has changed you over the last year. I didn't want my child to be born and raised somewhere on its border, to become a bargaining chip, or a target." She turns her head and looks at him. There is no accusation in her eyes, only emptiness. "I was scared," she says simply. "Scared of you, scared of what you'd become, and of what could happen to my child in your reality. So I decided to disappear. Start over, just once, for him." The silence after her words seems deafening. Even the sound of the fountain fades into the distance. Then something inside Taemin snaps. Everything that had been building up over the sleepless night, rage, resentment, pain, burst out. "Were you scared?" His voice sounds sharp, strangled. "Have you decided? You had the right to decide for both of us?" He takes a step forward. Eleni doesn't back down. "It wasn't just your child. It was my son too." Taemin barely controls the volume. The elderly couple looks in their direction. "You stole 7 years from me. 7 years of his life. His first steps, his first words, his laughter. You stole my right to be a father." "What kind of father?" She suddenly flares up. For the first time, a living light appears in her eyes, angry and bitter. "Were you ready to be a father? You whose life consisted of phone calls, 3 a.m. meetings, suspicious activities, and constant threats? You disappeared for weeks, and when you reappeared, you were a different person. Hard, closed, cold. What was I supposed to do? Bring a child into this chaos? Make him a hostage? You should have given me a choice," he screams back. "You acted like a coward. You ran away and hid. And you didn't even try. You didn't give me a chance to change anything. You committed betrayal, the worst kind imaginable." Their voices are too loud for the quiet park. The mother and the stroller quickly drive away down the alley. Taemin notices it out of the corner of his eye and forces himself to lower his voice. But the tension doesn't subside. "It doesn't matter anymore," he says, every word as crisp as steel. "What's done is done. You made your choice 7 years ago. Now I'm making mine. I know about him. I've seen him. He's my son. He takes another step, closing the distance to a minimum. They stand so close that he can see her eyelashes fluttering. And now I'll be a part of his life, Taemin continues. His voice is quiet, but it's so powerful that Alani can't help but throw her head back. I'll know his name. I'll know what school he goes to, who his friends are, what he likes, what he's afraid of. I'll be there. That's my right. Alani looks at him, and her composure, her anger, melts away, revealing what was hidden underneath. Real, deep-seated fear. Not for herself, for her son. This is exactly what I was afraid of, she whispers, her voice breaking. These very words. This certainty. This feeling that you'll just take what you want. Your world, it's all-consuming. It leaves you with no choice. I built a quiet, normal, safe life for him. He went to a regular school, made friends with the kids in the neighborhood, didn't suspect a thing. And now you come along, and I feel this fragile wall I spent 7 years building cracking at the seams. You'll bring your shadow with you, Taemin, your problems, your enemies, your danger, and he'll be at the center of it, because he's your weakness, and your weakness will become his weakness. Don't you understand? I don't want to protect him from you. I want to protect him from everything that follows you. There are tears in her eyes, but she's not crying. She simply looks at him with pure, unadulterated horror. This fear isn't feigned, it's real. And Taemin, looking at her, suddenly understands her completely. He understands what she saw in their last months, what he was like, and that she might have been right to be afraid back then. He takes a step back, giving her space, his posture becoming less aggressive. I don't want to ruin his life, he says, his voice now sounding tired. I don't want to scare him, and I don't want to drag him into my affairs. He searches for words, avoiding direct definitions. I suggest we start small, he continues. Very small. You will be present at all times. All meetings will be where you say, when you say. A park, a cafe, a playground. You can sit 2 meters away. I want to get to know him. Talk. Find out what he's like. What his name is. He asked me yesterday who I am. I want to give him an answer, but I want to give it to him together with you. Eleni listens silently. She didn't expect this. She expected demands, ultimatums, threats through lawyers. Only in my presence? She asks again, incredulously. Yes, every time. Until you're sure it can be done differently. I'm giving you complete control over this, over our meetings. Eleni looks at him for a long moment. She's assessing the sincerity of his words. She's looking for a catch. But in his eyes, she sees more than just determination. She sees the same pain she's felt all these years. Loneliness. And a strange, awkward desire to fix everything, even though nothing can be fixed anymore. His name is Kai, she says quietly, and it sounds like a surrender. Not complete, but temporary, cautious. Kai James? Taemin repeats the name to himself. Kai. His son's name is Kai. Okay, he says. Thank you. Eleni looks at her watch. I have to pick him up from school in 3 hours. I'll talk to him tonight. What will you tell him? She sighs. The truth. Well, part of it. That he has a father. That we haven't spoken in a while. But now you want to meet him. That you're a good person. And he doesn't have to be afraid. The word good comes to her with difficulty. But she says it deliberately. For Taemin, it means more than any apology. When can I see him? He asks, trying to keep the impatience out of his voice. On Saturday, at lunchtime, right here in the park, by the playground. I'll be nearby. Taemin nods. Saturday, at lunchtime. I'll be here. He wants to say more, ask 1,000 questions, but he knows he's reached his limit today. She's given him more than he could have hoped for an hour ago. Eleni turns to leave. She takes a few steps, then turns around. Taemin, she says, don't make me regret this. Please. She doesn't wait for an answer. She quickly walks down the alley, disappearing among the trees. Taemin remains standing by the fountain. The sound of the water now seems less loud. In his chest, next to the pain and anger, a small, uncertain point of warmth appears. Hope. He knows his son's name. On Saturday, he will see him again. Saturday, a small cafe near the park. Eleni chose it herself. It's bright, with large windows and tables spaced far apart. Taemin arrives first. He sits at a table against the wall and waits. He's not wearing his usual suit. He's wearing dark jeans and a simple gray sweater. He wants to look less formal, less threatening. He's nervous. He fidgets with a paper napkin, tearing it into tiny pieces. He sees them at the door. Eleni is leading Kai by the hand. The boy is wearing a bright blue jacket and sneakers with light-up accents. He glances around the cafe, his gaze sliding across the tables and stopping at Taemin. He recognizes him. Interest and a slight wariness appear in his eyes. Alani leads him to the table. She herself looks tense as a string. "Hi," Taemin says, standing up. His voice sounds unnaturally loud. Kai looks at him silently. Then he hides his face in the folds of his mother's coat. "Say hi, sunshine," Alani says softly, running her hand through his hair. "Hi," Kai mumbles without looking. They sit down. Alani sits next to Kai, across from Taemin. She acts as a buffer. The silence becomes awkward. Taemin feels stupid. He doesn't know what to say to a 7-year-old. The waitress brings menus. Alani orders cocoa and a pastry for Kai. Tea for herself. Taemin, without looking, asks for black coffee. Taemin suddenly asks. It's the first question that comes to his mind. Kai looks at him from under his lowered eyelashes and nods. "Do you have any, maybe with a remote control?" "There's a truck," Kai says quietly, "but there's no remote control." "It's just like that, big. I loved trucks as a kid," says Taemin, and it's true. Especially dump trucks. Kai looks up at him. "Why?" "Well, they're strong. They can carry a lot of stuff, like superheroes." A faint smile appears on Kai's lips. He hides his face again, but not so deeply this time. The conversation is labored, punctuated by long pauses. Taemin asks simple questions about school, his favorite cartoons, his friends. Kai answers in monosyllables, but gradually begins to talk more. He talks about his best friend Leo and how they play soccer on the school playground. Taemin just nods and listens. He hangs on every word. He watches Kai eat the cake, carefully breaking off pieces with a fork. He sees something of Alani in his gestures and himself in his expression. Alani barely intervenes. She sits, sips tea, and watches. Her gaze constantly switches from her son's face to Taemin's, as if she's searching for some threat, but she lets them talk. Once the cocoa is drunk and the cake is eaten, Kai begins to fidget in his chair. He's bored. As soon as Kai leaves, the atmosphere at the table changes. The slight tension that had been there while the boy was there is replaced by a heavy, thick silence. Taemin looks at Alani. "Thank you for coming, and for allowing this." Alani nods without looking at him. She watches Kai's every movement near the aquarium. Her body is still turned toward him, as if she's ready to leap up and intercept him at any moment. Taemin says quietly, "Smart." "Yes," Alani says, her voice distant. "He's good." Taemin wants to say something else, ask how she coped alone, how she raised him, but he sees the tension in her shoulders, the way her fingers tighten around the handle of her cup. She's here physically, but mentally, she's completely there with her son. She's protecting him even now. When he's 2 meters away in a safe, open place, she's protecting him even from him, Taemin. The thought hurts him. He's a father, and she views him as a potential danger to be protected from. She doesn't see him as an ally, a partner in raising their child. She sees him as a threat, one she's only temporarily agreed to keep on a tight leash. Never! She finally turns her gaze to him. There's no faith in her eyes. There's a tired caution. "I know you think that now," she says, "but it's not just about physical harm. It's about influence, about example, about the world you leave behind. It's small. It absorbs everything." "What will it absorb from you, Taemin?" He doesn't know what to answer, because he doesn't know the answer himself. What can he give his son, other than material security? What lessons, other than lessons in strength, suspicion, and the ability to survive in the world he himself has built? He remains silent. The confidence with which he asserted his rights in the park now seems fragile and naive. Kai returns to the table. He tugs at his mother's sleeve. "Mom, I want to go home." "Can I?" Alani stands up immediately. "Of course, honey." She helps him put on his jacket. Taemin stands up too. "Goodbye, Kai. It was nice talking to you." "Bye," Kai says, more freely now. He even smiles at him as he leaves. Taemin watches them leave. He's left alone at the table with his coffee still half drunk. A feeling of emptiness mingles with a new, sharp pain. He's secured a meeting. He's spoken with his son. But there's still a wall between him and his child. A wall named Eleni, and that wall seems to have only grown stronger today. They meet again, a week later. Then a week later, Alani strictly maintains her distance and schedule. All meetings take place in public places. At the same cafe, at the park playground, at the city zoo. She's always nearby. She observes. But gradually something changes. Kai gets used to Taemin. He stops hiding behind his mother. He starts looking forward to these meetings. He calls him by his first name, Taemin. Not dad yet, but not uncle either. Just Taemin. Taemin is learning. He makes mistakes. He buys Kai a huge, expensive toy, a remote-controlled helicopter. Alani, with one look, makes it clear it's too much. Kai is delighted, but 5 minutes later, he destroys the helicopter by crashing it into a tree. Taemin wants to buy a new one right away, but Alani shakes her head. Let him learn to appreciate what he has, she says quietly, and understand that not everything can be bought. The next time, Taemin brings not a toy, but 2 simple paper kites. They fly them in the park. Kai laughs when his kite nosedives into the ground. Taemin shows him how to hold the line properly. They succeed. Taemin watches cartoons with Kai at the cinema. He sits between his son and Alani with a bucket of popcorn on his lap. He doesn't follow the plot. He watches Kai freeze during tense moments, laughing at silly jokes. He feels the warmth of Kai's small shoulder pressed against his arm. They're playing soccer on the court. Taemin, trying not to overdo it, gives the boy a run for his money. Kai scores a goal in an imaginary net and runs around with his arms raised, like a true champion. Taemin catches him in his arms and spins him around. Kai squeals with delight. And Taemin, for the first time in years, feels pure, simple joy. He forgets for a moment about his work, his debts, the constant danger. He's just a father playing with his son. Eleni watches from the bench. Her face gradually loses its initial stern guard. She's still vigilant, but occasionally she allows herself to smile as she watches them. Sometimes she even gets distracted, checking something on her phone, something that would have been unthinkable before. Taemin captures these moments. He sees how the wall between them doesn't crumble, but cracks appear. Through them, something akin to trust peeks out, very fragile. One Saturday, they go to a large shopping mall. Kai asked to look at a new construction set. Alani agreed. This is their first foray into such a crowded place. They're standing in front of a toy store window. Kai's nose is pressed to the glass, pointing at a huge box. Taemin stands nearby, listening to his animated speech. Alani stands a little distance away, watching them. And at that moment, Taemin sees them, 2 of his subordinates. They're walking through the mall, carrying some bags. They're not the top brass, just regular guys running errands. They haven't noticed him yet. An icy chill runs down Taemin's spine. His private life, this fragile, separate world he'd begun to build with Kai, is about to collide with his other world, the world Alani so fears. He quickly turns away, hoping they'll pass by. But it's too late. One of the guys, a young man with a short haircut, has already noticed him. His eyes widen in surprise. He's never seen his boss in such a setting, and certainly not with a child and a woman. The guy nods hesitantly at Taemin, showing respect, but his gaze slid curiously to Kai and Alani. His partner also notices Taemin and freezes. Taemin nods back, barely perceptibly, but very firmly, giving them a silent command. Move on. Don't come closer. Don't ask questions. The guys understand. They quickly pass by, pretending they didn't see anything, but the damage has already been done. Taemin watches them go. He knows that rumors will spread throughout his organization this very evening. The boss was at the mall with some boy and a woman. Questions, guesses, gossip. His personal life is no longer a secret. It has come to light. He slowly turns back. Alani looks at him. She noticed that brief, tense exchange of glances. She saw those 2 burly men in dark clothes who looked at Taemin so strangely and then disappeared so quickly. Her face freezes. All the warmth, all the gradual thawing of the last few weeks vanishes in an instant. Her eyes become cold and sharp. She looks at Taemin, and in her gaze there is a silent reproach and confirmation of all her worst fears. "Mom, look how huge it is!" Kai shouts, not noticing anything. Eleni doesn't answer. She just looks at Taemin. Then she walks over to Kai and takes his hand. "We have to go," she says in a voice devoid of warmth. "Right now." "But Mom!" Kai starts whining. "Right now, Kai!" Her voice sounds sharp, almost like a shout. Kai falls silent, frightened. She casts one last glance at Taemin, a look of utter disappointment and fear. Then she quickly leads her son away, disappearing into the crowd. Taemin remains standing by the toy display. Inside, he feels empty and cold. He realizes he's just lost something very important. The trust that had built up over weeks evaporated in a second. His worlds collided, and the fragile new world cracked. Now he faces an explanation that he feels could destroy everything completely. Rumors, as Taemin had predicted, spread quickly. In his world, nothing stays secret for long, especially when the secret concerns the personal life of someone who usually keeps everything under control. The information reaches a man named Victor. Victor is not young. He's been in business for a long time, with his own interests in the city, which occasionally intersect with Taemin's. There's no open hostility between them, but there is a cold, mutual distrust and a series of small conflicts over territory and contracts. Victor considers Taemin an upstart, overly self-assured. Taemin considers Victor a relic who thinks too slowly. Victor is sitting in his office when he receives information. Not detailed, just a fact. Taemin was spotted at a shopping mall with a boy of about 7 and a woman. He acts like a family man. The boy called him by his first name. Victor listens, his heavy, weather-beaten face expressionless. He nods and dismisses the informant. Then he sits in silence for a long time, tapping his thick fingers on the table. He's not a sentimental man. He sees opportunities. Everyone has a weakness. Until now, Taemin's weakness wasn't obvious. He was like a closed fortress. No family, no public connections, only work, only business. And now a breach has appeared. A small one, but a breach nonetheless. A woman and a child. A child who clearly means a lot to Taemin, since he dared to appear with her in public. Victor isn't planning anything cruel. He's not a maniac, but he is a pragmatist. Knowledge is leverage, and leverage needs to be kept at the ready, just in case. If Taemin becomes too active in some disputed territory, or if a conflict over money arises, Victor will now have a trump card, an implicit but clear-cut threat. It doesn't necessarily have to be carried out. A hint is enough. He gives a quiet order to his assistant. Find out who this woman is, where they live, no noise, just background information. This isn't a declaration of war, it's insurance. But in his world, even insurance stinks of gunpowder. Taemin receives a signal 2 days later. Not directly, but through a neutral person who sometimes mediates disputes. This person calls Taemin and asks for a meeting as a personal favor. They meet in a neutral location, a cafe at the train station. The intermediary, an elderly man with intelligent eyes, wastes no time. I was given a question, he says quietly, stirring his cold coffee with a spoon. Not a threat, for now. A question about your new family situation from someone who shouldn't know about it. Taemin feels a chill run down his spine. He keeps his face stony. What question? The question of how fragile this situation is, how attached you are to it. The mediator looks at him directly. It was just a question, but you understand what it means. Taemin understands. This means Victor, he immediately guesses who's behind this, is already in the know. And he views Kai and Ilani as potential pressure. For now, it's just intelligence. But where there's intelligence, there could be an army. Tell them that my personal life is not up for discussion, Taemin says, his voice quiet, but every syllable carved from ice, and that any attempt to make it so would be the biggest mistake of anyone's life. The intermediary nods slowly. I'll pass it on. But, Taemin, children are your most vulnerable spot. You know that. They don't live in our reality, and they're not allowed to appear in it. He leaves, leaving Taemin alone with his untouched coffee. The warning has been received. It's crystal clear. Kai and Eleni are in sight. They're not safe, and now he's their greatest threat, because his world, his past, his enemies are following them. Taemin doesn't go home. He goes to his office, locks himself in, and looks out the window at the city at night. His head is a mess. He has 2 options. The first, distance himself, abruptly, immediately, without explanation. Stop calling Alani, cancel all meetings, pretend nothing happened, pretend Kai was a mistake, a fleeting weakness that he corrected. This could throw him off the scent. Victor will understand that the child isn't his true weakness, since he gave up on him so easily. The threat will lose its force. Alani and Kai will return to their quiet, safe life. He will remain aloof. He will know they are alive and well, but he will never be there. This is the wisest, the safest path for them. The second option, get closer. Take them under complete, total protection. Move them to a secure building. Assign them 24/7 security. Isolate them completely from the outside world. Become their jailer for their own safety. This will guarantee that nothing will happen to them, but it will destroy the fragile normalcy Alani spent 7 years building. It will draw them into the very center of his world, immerse them in the very shadow she so desperately fled. Kai will grow up in a gilded cage, seeing his father not as a father, but as a warden. Ilani will hate him completely. Both options seem unbearable. He paces the office. He can't choose. To distance him means losing his son again, this time by his own will. To bring him closer means ruining his childhood. He thinks of the fear in Ilani's eyes at the mall. She already sensed danger. She's not stupid. She knows something is wrong. If he simply disappeared, she'd breathe a sigh of relief. But she'd live in fear that he'd come back, or that someone else would. There's a third way, an honest one, the most difficult. It doesn't guarantee safety. It requires trust, which they don't have. But it's the only one that leaves at least some hope for the future. He arrives at her home late in the evening. He's known the address for years, but he's never used it. He stands outside her apartment in an ordinary, modest building on the outskirts. He didn't call. He simply showed up. He knocks. Her eyes are filled with anticipation of the worst. "What happened? Is Kai okay?" she asks immediately, her voice choked with fear. "Kai is fine. I need to talk. Now." She hesitates, then closes the door, undoes the chain, and opens it again. She's wearing an old t-shirt and sweatpants. Behind her in the small living room, a child's bike is visible against the wall, and a coloring book is on the table. She doesn't invite him to sit down. They stand in the hallway. "I know who you saw at the mall," Taemin begins without preamble. "They're my people. They saw me. Now everyone who needs to know knows." Ilani closes her eyes as if she's been struck. "I thought so. That's not all. Today I received a warning, an indirect one, from one person with whom I have a disagreement. He found out about you, about Kai. He sees this as my weakness." Ilani leans against the wall as if her legs are giving way. "Oh my God. I face a choice, Ilani. I can leave. Disappear from your life, right now. If I do, interest in you will fade. You will become a nobody again. Return to your normal life. Safe." She looks at him, and he sees a spark of hope flicker in her eyes. But she waits. "Or," he continues, his voice growing quieter, "I can try to protect you, but that means my guard at your door. Relocation, restrictions. You'll live in my world, in the shadows, and Kai will grow up looking at armed men outside his window." Tears silently roll down her cheeks. She's not sobbing. She just stands there and cries from helplessness and fear. "I don't know what to do," Taemin says, and for the first time in years, there's genuine, uncertain confusion in his voice. He lowers his head. "I don't want to hurt you. I don't want to lose him again, but I can't put you in danger. Everything I've done in my life, all the mistakes, all the decisions, now they're coming back to haunt you, to haunt him, and I don't know how to fix it." He's completely exposed, without the protective armor of anger, without the mask of control. Before her is simply a frightened man who fears for his son and understands that he himself is a source of danger to him. Ilani looks at him for a long moment, through tears. Then she wipes her face with the sleeve of her t-shirt. Her expression changes. The fear doesn't go away, but something else is added to it. Determination. "If you disappear," she says quietly, "he'll grow up thinking his father abandoned him again, that he's not important enough. You've hurt him once, without even knowing it. Don't hurt him again." Taemin looks up at her, his eyes filled with a silent question. "What if I stay?" he says. "Then we have to be smarter," Ilani says. Her voice becomes firmer, more practical. "We can't just carry on as before. And we can't lock ourselves in the fortress. Kai won't understand. It will break him." She takes a step forward. "You talk about your world as if it were something separate. But now it's our world too, because you've entered our lives. So we have to live with it, but on our terms." "What conditions?" Taemin asks, a faint, cautious hope flaring in his chest. "First, no armed men at the door. No black SUVs under the windows. Kai shouldn't live under siege. Second, we're not moving. We're staying here. This is our home. Third, there must be security, but it must be invisible. If you're so powerful, find a way to warn that man so he won't even think about looking our way. Use your resources, but somewhere out there, far away from us." She speaks clearly, thoughtfully. She doesn't offer emotions. She offers a plan. "But what about dating? Communication?" asks Taemin. "We'll meet, but not on a schedule, in different places, without warning. You won't call ahead. You'll send one message with the location and time an hour in advance, and we'll come if we can. No routine that can be tracked." Taemin listens, his amazement growing. He looks at this woman who spent 7 years in hiding, raising a child alone, and sees her not as a victim, but as a strategist. She accepts reality, no matter how terrible, and seeks a way to survive it. Not to flee, but to adapt. Are you willing to take such a risk? He asks quietly. I don't agree to risk, she corrects. I agree to manageable danger, because the alternative, losing him his father again, is worse. But, Taemin, she looks him straight in the eye. If you harm a hair on your head because of him, I will kill you myself. Understand? There's no hysteria in her words. There's a cold, ironclad promise. Taemin nods slowly. Got it! For a moment, silence reigns in the cramped hallway. The hostility, the suspicions, the pain of the past, all of it remains. But above all this, there is something new, a fragile yet practical alliance, a union not out of love or friendship, but for a common cause, for the safety of their son. For the first time in 7 years, they stand not on opposite sides of the barricade, but shoulder to shoulder, facing the same threat. The path forward is unknown and dangerous, but now they are not walking it alone. The day after the conversation in the hallway, Taemin takes action. He doesn't just give orders, he changes the rules. He gathers his closest aides. There are only 3 of them, people who have been with him for many years. He speaks to them not as a boss, but as a partner, breaking the difficult news. There are people in my life who need to be protected, he says bluntly, looking at each of them. That means our methods of work must change, now, forever. He announces new rules. All contentious, gray matters are frozen. Confrontations over trivial matters cease. If there's territory or a contract that entices Victor or others to be greedy, Taemin proposes renegotiating the terms. Not fighting, but negotiating. Sharing, if necessary. He explains, strength now lies not in taking, but in ensuring no one has the desire to attack us. Our resilience is our best defense. He's selling several assets that have always generated a good income, but required constant effort and risk. He's investing the money in legitimate, boring businesses, a small logistics warehouse, a stake in a window installation company, things that hold no interest for people like Victor. He changes his schedule. No more late-night meetings in vacant lots or back alleys. All business conversations are moved to daylight, to office spaces, sometimes even to cafes. He becomes predictable and open in his professional life to reduce the aura of mystery and threat around him. He meets with Victor personally. The meeting takes place on neutral territory, in front of witnesses. Taemin makes no threats. He speaks calmly. I know about your interest in my personal life, says Taemin. I'm here to clarify the situation. These people are under my protection. I will regard any attention to them from you not as an attack against me, but as a declaration of war against my home. And I will respond to such a war differently than to a dispute over money. Do you understand me? He doesn't raise his voice, but his words sound so absolute, coldly certain that Victor, the old wolf, understands. This is not a bluff. This is a red line. Taemin shows that he is ready to burn everything for this, including himself and his opponent. This makes the threat meaningless. Victor nods slowly. Agreed. Your personal life is your business, provided that our business differences are resolved, civilly. They are already being resolved, says Taemin. He hands Victor a folder containing a proposal for one of the disputed areas. The offer is more than generous. Taemin is conducting a purge within his organization. Not a bloody one, but an administrative one. He's removing several overly hot-blooded, aggressive individuals, transferring them to the periphery or offering them paydays. He's promoting those who value order and peace. He's creating a system that will function smoothly and without scandal. A system that doesn't require the use of force to defend itself. Every evening, he gives himself an accountability check. What did he do? What did he change? How much safer is his world now so he can take Kai by the hand and go to the zoo on Saturday? It's a painfully slow process. Sometimes he feels like he's cutting off the branch he's sitting on. His income is declining. His influence in some circles is waning. Some old allies look at him with incomprehension, but he continues, because now he has a goal that's more important than money and power. He needs not a fortress to hide in, but a safe haven to return to. Several months passed. Early morning. Autumn. Alani's apartment is filled with the usual morning bustle. Kai grumbles as he puts on his sneakers. Alani packs his lunchbox for school. There's a soft knock on the door. Once, a pause, twice. This is the agreed-upon signal. Alani peers through the peephole, then opens it. Taemin is standing on the threshold. He's wearing a dark coat and no tie. He's holding 2 paper boxes of hot cocoa. Good morning, he says, handing one box to Kai. Hooray! Coco! Kai forgets about the laces and grabs the box. Just be careful, it's hot, Taemin warns, and there's a softness in his voice that wasn't there before. He walks inside, leaving the door open. He doesn't stay long. He's just come to see Kai off to school. It's become a new tradition. Not every day, so as not to create a pattern. But once or twice a week, he shows up like this, with treats, and he and Kai walk through the park. It's a short 20 minutes that Taemin values more than any business meeting. Kai finishes his cocoa. Alani helps him put on his jacket and pull on his backpack. Dad, are we going down that road with the squirrels today? Kai asks, zipping up his coat. The word dad slipped out of him by accident a month ago and stuck. Taemin hears it every time, and every time something melts inside him. If we make it, Taemin smiles. But we can't be late. He looks at Alani. Their eyes meet. The icy wall between them is gone. There's a cautious, time-tested truce. Trust forged not in joy, but in shared fear and practical decisions. They're not a couple. They don't live together. They have no romantic feelings for each other. Too much past pain and bitterness. But they've become a family. A strange, unconventional one, but a family nonetheless. They're bound by Kai and a shared understanding of the price they paid for this fragile stability. What time until today? Taemin asks. He asks not as a boss, but as a participant in the schedule. At 3. He has drawing class later, Alani replies. I'll pick it up if you're busy. I'm not busy, but you can come if you want. He'll be glad. They communicate briefly, to the point, but these phrases encapsulate their entire new world. Coordination, predictability, joint planning. Come on, Commander, or the squirrels will run away, says Taemin, putting his hand on Kai's shoulder. Bye, Mom! Kai shouts and runs out into the entrance. Taemin nods goodbye to Alani and follows her out. The door closes. Alani approaches the kitchen window. She watches them walk across the yard. Kai is talking animatedly, waving his arms. Taemin listens, his head bowed. He laughs in response to something. He looks ordinary, a father walking his son to school. Alani hugs herself. Two feelings mingle in her chest, as they always do in such moments. Anxiety, a quiet, constant background unease that has now become part of her life. She looks at the windows of the neighboring houses, at the passing cars, searching for something unfamiliar, alien. She checks her phone for a new, prearranged message from Taemin about a change of plans. The fear hasn't gone away. It's simply quieted, become manageable. But there's a second feeling, hope, thin as first ice, but real. She sees Kai reaching out to his father. She sees Taemin changing, becoming softer, more patient, more normal. He's not a perfect father. He often doesn't know what to do, but he tries. He's here, and he's done something for them she never expected. He's begun to change his world, so theirs can exist. She watches them turn the corner and disappear from view. The courtyard is empty again. The morning continues. She moves away from the window to finish her tea. This afternoon, she'll go to work. Tonight, the three of them will probably have dinner together at the same pizzeria they were at last week. Life goes on. Not the way she once dreamed, not the way she feared. Different, complex, with cracks and scars, but her own. And in it, in this new life, there's room for them all, as long as they're careful, as long as they're together. Alani finishes her tea, washes her mug, and begins getting ready for work. Her movements are calm, familiar. She checks that the lights are off and the windows are closed. Old habits that have become second nature over the past few months. At work, in a small translation agency, she's immersed in her writing. But part of her attention always lingers on the phone lying on the desk nearby. It's on silent, but the screen is always in sight. No alarms come. Just a text at lunch. Picked up Kai. We're going to painting class. Everything's okay. Attached to the message is a photo. Kai in an apron, holding a brush, smiling. Taemin is only partially visible in the photo. His hand is visible on his son's shoulder. That evening, Taemin brings Kai home. The boy is excited, showing his mother a drawing. The sky and a strange-looking rocket that looks like a truck. Taemin stands in the doorway, not going far. Can I go to school tomorrow? He asks. Yes, Eleni nods, but not with Coco. It gives him a tummy ache. Taemin smiles, a little embarrassed. Got it, then with an apple. He says goodbye and leaves. His presence no longer causes Alani a spasm of fear. It has become part of the landscape of their lives. Not ideal, not like in their dreams, but real. Kai eats dinner and talks about his day. Then he goes to brush his teeth and goes to bed. Eleni sits in the quiet living room, listening to the sounds of the city at night outside the window. The anxiety is still there, somewhere deep inside. But above it lies fatigue and a strange, quiet satisfaction. They've made it through another day, all three of them. And tomorrow will be another day, just like this one, with its own little risks and its own little joys. That's enough for now.